Hello, my film friends, and welcome back. This week we are going to tackle the top Texas movies, in my opinion. I am about to go to Texas and thought it would be appropriate to get ready for that Texas trip to watch some Texas films. Let me introduce myself in case you're new here. My name is Stacia, and I am a lifelong film fan. And also, I study film history. So sit back, relax, and enjoy my top picks of Texas movies. The first one I am going to start with is a big one. You might say a giant one. The 1956 movie Giant, starring Elizabeth Taylor, Rock Hudson, and of course the late, great, well, they're all late and great, James Dean. And this movie is a sprawling epic about Texas. Rock Hudson plays a Texas rancher, goes through the generations of him dealing with the changes in Texas, also him trying to tame his wife, who is not from Texas. That, of course, is played by Elizabeth Taylor. Rock Hudson and James Dean didn't really get along on the movie either, and this is largely attributed to their different acting styles. Rock Hudson was the old school actor, and James Dean came from the new school, literally, where he used method acting, and those styles clash. This is a movie that James Dean really wanted to be in. He fought to be in it, and we all know he was only in 3 movies before his unfortunate early death, but he offered to work for actors minimum. And out of the 3 movies that James Dean is in, 2 of those movies also have Dennis Hopper in it. This one, and of course, Rebel Without a Cause. To date, when this movie was released in 1956, this became Warner Brothers' highest grossing film, and it remained its highest grossing film until The Exorcist came out in 1973. I always really liked the movie Giant for its sweeping Texas grandeur. It definitely highlights rural Texas with the rancher aspect to it, living out seemingly in the middle of nowhere on non-ending land, and it really highlights the largeness of Texas and the desolation that can sometimes be in Texas. The next Texas movie on my list is the 1980 movie Urban Cowboy, starring John Travolta and Debra Winger. This was during John Travolta's heyday, right after he did Grease and he did Saturday Night Fever. This came in succession with that, came out in 1980 when he was still a huge star of the late 70s and early 80s, before he had a slight career downturn before one of his several comebacks. Travolta stars as Bud Davis, a young cowboy who decides to move to the big city of Houston to work in an oil refinery. When he comes to the big city, he meets Debra Winger's character. Her name is Sissy. They meet at a bar, which is a real bar that was in the Houston area at the time, named Gilley's. I don't think it exists anymore. I could be wrong. But at the time in 1980, when this was filmed, it was the largest bar in the world. They meet there, they fall in love. But this movie at its heart is a melodramatic romance. It's very entertaining. It has a great soundtrack, good country music, and 1980s classic country music backdrop, line dancing, bull riding, the whole 9 yards. It also has Scott Glenn from The Right Stuff in it, and Gary Busey also has a part in this movie. And it is an entertaining little movie, you know, about 2 people falling in love. And like I said, the trials and tribulations that come with that, with a great country music Western setting in classic 1980 Houston, Texas, before it was the huge city that it is today. It was still a big city back then, but it was nowhere near the fourth largest city in the country. The next movie on my Texas movie list is the 1984 indie classic by director Wim Wenders, Paris, Texas. It stars Harry Dean Stanton, Nastassja Kinski, and Dean Stockwell in 3 main roles. And it actually takes place, a lot of it takes place in Los Angeles, but then they do go to Houston. None of it takes place in Paris, Texas, ironically. And I will just let you watch the movie to figure out what role Paris, Texas actually has in this movie. But Harry Dean Stanton plays the role of Travis, who has basically dropped out of society. And this is his journey to get back to society, find the woman that he once loved, and reconnect with his son. Nastassja Kinski plays his ex, who he has sort of built up as a fantasy woman in his head, and part of it centers around him trying to find her, to see what happened and what went wrong, and see if the fantasy in his head lives up to what actually went on in his life, and what happened actually was the impetus of him dropping out of society for several years. Dean Stockwell plays Harry Dean Stanton's character's Travis. It's his brother who comes and picks him up after he reappears and takes him to Los Angeles, and reunites him with his son. It is a unique portrayal of 1980s life, of the breakup of a family, and at that time where we didn't embrace sort of the mental issues that can come with sort of losing what you saw as the center of your world and trying to reconnect with society. It is a good exploration of that, and also, you know, a father reconnecting with his son after dropping out of his life and kind of abandoning him for a while. And it is really well done. It's very well acted. It's beautifully photographed. And it really shows early 80s Houston area again, life in Texas. But also a lot of it is life in the LA area. But it is a heartwarming story of a guy just trying to get his life back and figuring out how he got to where he had basically his breakdown. So the next movie on my list is not a perfect movie. It's not considered good. It's just pure fun. It is the 1982 movie, The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas. It stars Burt Reynolds, Dolly Parton, DeLuise. It also has Charles Durning and Jim Nabors in it. It is a musical. It has some catchy songs in it. You will hear Dolly Parton sing I Will Always Love You to Burt Reynolds. It is just a fun, good time. It was based on a Broadway musical. And when I saw this when I was a little kid, when it came out, this was our naughty movie. There's just a little bit of nudity, but none from Dolly Parton. She is basically the madam of a old whorehouse, or what they call it, the chicken ranch in the movie. And Burt Reynolds plays the sheriff who is actually in love with Dolly Parton's character. Then problems ensue when a TV evangelical comes and questions the existence of the chicken ranch and its legacy, and leads a crusade of morality to have it shut down. And like I said, there are some catchy little musical numbers not only by Dolly Parton but by Dom DeLuise and Charles Durning also. They both have two very catchy numbers in the movie. And like I said, this was actually based on a Broadway musical. It's quite different from the Broadway musical, but it is a fun time to watch. It's not going to change your life or anything, but are you going to have fun watching it? And are you going to hum along to some of the tunes? And are some of them going to get stuck in your mind? Yes, they are. And believe it or not, this is based on a real place in Texas, which doesn't exist anymore. But at one point, there was a real chicken ranch in Texas. Chicken ranch, if you know what I mean. My next movie on my Texas movie list is the 1984 movie Places in the Heart, starring Sally Field. And yes, this is the role that Sally Field won her second Oscar, in which she made her Oscar speech, which everybody misquotes as her saying, "You like me, you really like me." This movie also stars Lindsay Crouse, Ed Harris, Amy Madigan, John Malkovich, and Danny Glover. It takes place in Central Texas during the 1930s, and if you know your history about the 1930s, yes, this happens during the Dust Bowl. Sally Field plays a widowed mother of two trying to hold on to her ranch during this time. This movie was filmed around Ellis County, Texas, making it a real Texas movie that wasn't shot on a back lot actually in Los Angeles. The whole thing was shot in and around Ellis County, Texas. But this is a wonderful and inspirational movie. If it sounds depressing, a widower trying to save her farm and her family, it's not. It's actually very uplifting and inspirational, and you'll feel really good after you watch this movie. And what would one of my lists be if it didn't include a horror movie? And of course, the horror movie for Texas that I am going to recommend is the 1974 movie The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. This stars Marilyn Burns as Sally, who is the final girl of this movie. Sorry, I should say spoiler alert for it, but the movie came out 50 years ago, so if you haven't seen it yet, it's bound to get spoiled for you. But then we have Edwin Neal, who plays the hitchhiker, Alan Danzinger plays Jerry, and Gunnar Hansen is Leatherface. But the basic premise is a band of youths are set out to visit their grandfather's old place, or a couple of their grandfather's old place in the middle of nowhere in Texas, and they happen upon a house and terror ensues. This was directed by Tobe Hooper, who directed, of course, the movie Poltergeist, and I know people like to do the rumor that Steven Spielberg actually directed Poltergeist. I hate to break it to you, but Tobe Hooper actually did direct that movie and not Steven Spielberg. This was a very low-budget horror movie. One of the things is it is loosely based on a true story, but the story takes a lot of liberties. There is a prologue voiceover to the movie that is actually voiced by John Larroquette, who is most famous for playing Dan Fielding in the hilarious 1980s sitcom Night Court. Well, thank you for watching my video. Again, my name is Stacia, and we have now made it to 21 subscribers. Like I said, my next goal is to make it to 30 subscribers. I'm taking it a little at a time. Let's, take it 10 subscribers at a time. So if you made it this far, if you could do me a favor and go ahead and subscribe to my channel and give me a thumbs up or leave a comment and let me know what you think. That would be greatly appreciated. And Like I said, to my 21 subscribers that I have now, I love you all. Thank you very much for subscribing. Onward and upward to 30. We will get there. I just know it. But thank you for watching, and please join me next time. Bye.